What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining me. I'm glad you're here. Today we're going to talk about a subject that I'm honestly not that fond of, but I get asked this question so often that I think it's probably time just to have a little conversation about it. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about what's in my camera bag. So welcome back to the show. I'm glad you're here, and here we go. So first, let's talk about why I didn't want to make this video. No, first let's get rid of this. I thought it was going to be better because it was white and the camera stuff is black, and it's just not better. Anyway, all I could see was white. All right, so the reason I don't love talking about gear, and it's not that I don't like gear, it's not that as a photographer I don't think the gear is important, but what I don't like is that you show someone a beautiful photograph and the first question they ask is, oh, what camera do you have? Oh, what lens is that? Are you shooting RAW, bro? Is it a beautiful photograph or is it not a beautiful photograph? That's really, I feel like, the fundamental core of everything that I'm about. And the gear is just a tool, just like your car is a tool to get you to the grocery store and that guitar is a tool to make some music. It's just a tool. And at some point, you become not limited by the tool, but limited by you. And I feel like in photography, especially, and I'm sure this goes for four-wheel drives, and I know it goes for music, but I think at some point, you have to realize that you need to get better. You don't need the newest Sony camera. You don't need 200 megapixels in order to be a good photographer. What you need is to be a better photographer. And so when we start talking about gear, my hackle feathers go up because I feel like there's so many great cameras, and even at the consumer level or the prosumer level where you're not spending crazy amounts of zeros to get that camera, you don't have to own a Hasselblad. You can buy a mid-range Sony, Nikon, Canon, and take great pictures. And so when we start talking about gear, I start getting this like, it isn't about that sort of reaction. And so I'm going to try and avoid that. We're just going to talk about what's in my bag today, and I'm going to explain to you why I have those things, why those tools for me are the best tools, and maybe for you to look at your gear and think about, am I good enough to need something better? Or do I think by getting something better, by buying the newest thing, that I'm actually going to become a better photographer? And I hope at the end of this video, you'll think about, in 2020, if you're going to spend money on photography, is it better to buy a new camera or a new lens? Or is it better to take a month off from your job with that money and actually go out in the world and take some pictures and become a better photographer? So that's my rant. Let's talk about gear now. All right, now I should further qualify this video by saying I'm a landscape shooter. I don't shoot sports, I don't shoot wildlife, I don't shoot babies or portraits or corporate events. I shoot landscapes. And so if you're a wedding shooter or portrait guy or girl, this might not be for you, and feel free to bail. Anyway, the core of my photographic experience is this guy right here. It is a Nikon D810. I bought it in August of 2014 from B&H. This video isn't sponsored. I love those guys. I love this camera, and every time a new Sony comes out or somebody's boasting about their new Canon or whatever, brand doesn't really make a difference anymore, I don't think, and I think about parting with this, it freaks me out. I've shot over 150,000 shutter actions on this camera body. It's still just rock solid. And honestly, I just instinctively know where everything is. I spent so much time with this tool that I just know it inside and out. And in landscape photography, I guess it's not as critical as some other things, but you're shooting a sunset, or you've got to recompose really quickly, or there are reasons why you need to be fast. And as prepared as I like to be, there's always that instance where I'm running down the hill somewhere trying to recompose because the sun's in the wrong place or there's clouds or whatever. And knowing that I know where everything is on this camera is super valuable. And honestly, I mean, it's 34, 36, I don't know, 30-something megapixels, full frame. The full frame was a big deal for me because of lens selection and that kind of stuff. But other than that, man, I shoot manual most of the time. This has so many amazing features and so much great stuff for so many other kinds of photographers. But literally for me, it's set the aperture, shut the shutter speed, make sure I'm in focus, and fire the shutter. Which sounds really simple, but I think if you do this, you know it isn't. But anyway, Nikon D810, that's my camera body. That is staying in my bag. I'm not going to replace it anytime soon. I love the way it feels in my hands. I love the sound of the shutter, just that whoosh. I worry about going to mirrorless because I'm going to miss that. You feel it. It's a tactile. Anyway, primary lens, Nikon 16 to 35. I know they make a 14 to 28 or something like that. That's double the price, and I don't actually care. 16 to 35 is a really great great zoom range for landscape photography. Most of the time I shoot this thing totally wide. Maybe I dial it in just a touch, but for most of the stuff I like, I want that kind of width, and 16 to 35 is a beautiful range, and this is a great lens. So also staying in my bag for 2020. Now, the combination of these two together is only completed by this Zacuto Z Finder, and those of you that know me know that I swear by this thing. It allows me to zoom in on that screen on the back and really just dial in my focus, check everything, even in bright sunlight. Like last week, we were down at the beach shooting some photographs, and I got this one of Katya right at sunset. And I'm shooting straight into the sun. Had I been looking through the viewfinder, I would have burned my corneas out and I wouldn't have been able to see any of my exposure values or anything. Just being able to isolate everything into this cup and immerse myself in the picture helps a lot. And I catch so many little composition things doing it this way that I would have probably missed just eyeballing it through the traditional viewfinder there, or even just looking at the screen without the zoom. So that's something it's big and it's clunky and it takes a lot of space in the bag, but it's not very heavy. And honestly, being able to even just review images and isolate the frame, for me, that's super valuable. And I think if I ever move to a mirrorless, the EVF is going to be like the greatest thing in the world for me, because I won't have to pack that around. That would take 20% of the space, give it back to me in my camera bag. And the last lens that I use a lot is this 28 to 300. We've talked about this in other videos. Kind of the nerd lens. It's a real wonky zoom, but it's a really great lens, and I've taken so many good pictures with this. And I think as a traveler, as a travel photographer specifically, having a zoom range that long to be able to compose in all sorts of situations is just magic, and that I would need 2 lenses in my bag, bigger ones, to cover that range. So that's staying in my bag for sure. And then really the only other lens that I pack around, and I only do it because every once in a while it comes in so handy, is this little 50 millimeter pancake lens. It's an f1.8, which is nice and fast. They make a 1.4, but it's so much more expensive, and I pull this out maybe 4% of the actual time that I'm shooting, so it's not something I use a lot, but it's a great lens for shooting portraits or close-ups or doing things where I want a real super shallow depth of field and I can actually control my distance from the subject. Never for landscape, but there's all kinds of other stuff that ends up getting shot when we're traveling. So that's it. 16 to 35, 28 to 300, and that little 50 mil. That's my kit. And really the only other things that have anything to do with the camera are this great wireless remote from Nikon that I've talked about before. And then on the floor, I've got a set of Lee filters, a 10-stop big stopper, the big stop, yeah, something like that, big stopper, yeah, that's right, and also a 3-stop, and I use those for things like slowing down water in a waterfall, or just getting a longer exposure to smooth out the water in a reflection, something like that. I don't get those out very often, but I always freak out if they're not in my bag, because as soon as you leave them at home, you're going to have to use them. And then I also have a circular polarizer, and I have adapter rings so that it works on all my lenses. I actually never use this. I almost never use this, I'll say that. But it stays in the bag because that's one of those just in cases that I think, just in case. And that's really it, guys. This is at the core my camera bag. And, if it wasn't for bringing a drone for video and all the video equipment that we've started to bring around to do these YouTube videos, I actually have a really nice, small, pretty lightweight camera bag. I can throw all of this in an over-the-shoulder sling and wear it all day, wandering through European towns, or, you know, running, gunning through the mountains and with just a backpack. It's not a lot of stuff, and I really like it that way. It seems like the longer that I do this, the less stuff I want to have with me. And so every year it's what can I take out of my bag, not what can I add into it. And honestly, guys, I've said it before and I will definitely say it again. It is not about the camera. It is about you. It's about the person behind the camera, the creativity, the vision, the passion that makes a great photograph. And so as much as we love to watch videos on what everybody has in their camera bags and all the new stuff that's coming out, and we'd like to get excited about that, let's get excited about increasing our shutter count, about getting out into the world and making some great photographs, because really at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about capturing that love that we have for these places, for these scenes, for that light, and being able to show that to people and see them experience it through our eyes. And the next time you see someone who shows you a beautiful photograph, don't ask, "Oh, what camera is shooting, bro?" Say, "Oh my gosh, what was it like to get that picture? What was it like to be there in that moment? How did you get such amazing shadows and highlights? Or how did you think of this composition?" Let's talk about the photograph, not the tools. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, or even if you just stuck around till now, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all that YouTube stuff that makes a huge difference. Leave a comment. I always love to see your comments. Thank you for those. And until next time, I'll see you.